Let me bring in Chris Mannix. This will calm me down. Hey, Mannix, how are you?
Hey, Dan.
Have you looked at this list? Do you care about this list?
Not especially, but listening to what you're saying, I'm sure I'll disagree because, I mean, look, no disrespect to the Russells and the Rick Barrys and the guys that played in that era. And you can certainly argue that if they benefit from the training of today's game, they'd be different and more improved players. But you're going to tell me that Rick Barry had any shot at doing anything with Russell Westbrook? Like, no way. Like, Russell Westbrook would eat him alive in any competition possible.
Well, no, we're not playing one-on-one here. What are you talking about? If that was Kareem would win this because he would back everybody down and score over them. Like, it's not one-on-one.
Well, I dispute that too. I mean, okay, like Kareem, there's ways of winning one-on-one, but that's neither. Okay. I agree with your sentiment. Okay, but like, do you remember what Russell Westbrook did that first MVP year? Like, that team was bad, and Russell Westbrook went out and propelled them to like 43, 44 wins after losing, arguably the best player in the game. Certainly one of the top three in Kevin Durant. I mean, that's a pretty impressive team accomplishment, Dan. Like, to have
Look at the Golden State Warriors when they won the NBA title, Chris. If we're going to make this about Rick Barry and Russell Westbrook hasn't accomplished anything other than, hey, average a triple-double. Okay, great. He did it a couple of times. Great. If that's the case, James Harden's one of the top 15 players. I don't. Durant belongs up there. Russell Westbrook is a phenomenon. But he's one of the great players of all time. That he's better than Rick Barry is silly. It is. It's silly.
You think if, like, you plopped Russell Westbrook onto those Rick Barry teams, they'd be worse?
We're arguing one against one here. Is Russell Westbrook one of the greatest athletes to ever play the game? Yes, he is. I'll give you that. Is he one of the greatest basketball players? I guess he's not better than Rick Barry. This doesn't have anything to do with, look at that physical specimen. I'm sure he's better than John Havlicek, your beloved Boston Celtics there. Who would you rather have, Russell Westbrook or John Havlicek?
It just depends on what your...
No, their careers.
It's hard.
Their careers?
Well,
yeah.
John Havlicek, because he won championships.
Okay.
But my argument is based on championships. And by the way, John Havlicek, pretty good selection of teammates he had around him for most of his career. Like, that was a great team that he was a part of.
Russell Westbrook had James Harden and Kevin Durant, and they didn't want to stay in Oklahoma City.
Well, I mean, we can split hairs on like the Harden. I mean, you really want to go back to Harden? Like, of course, at the time he wanted to stay, he wanted to get paid. And privately, Oklahoma City officials will tell you that was the biggest mistake that they made, not maxing out James Harden and going into the luxury tax that year they offered him. That was a catastrophe. That had nothing to do
All right,
with...
we're getting off track here because
Well, hold on. Just one thing, Dan. One thing on this.
Okay.
Real quick. Like, accomplishments. There was a time when averaging a triple-double was like Joe DiMaggio's hitting streak. Like, there was a time when nobody was going to do what Oscar Robertson did. And then Russell Westbrook comes along and does it 3 times. Like, that's an incredible accomplishment.
He's the most ball-dominant player of all time. Now, him and Harden, the most ball. Are you trying to tell me if Magic wanted to average a triple-double, if Bird wanted to average a triple-double? Like, today's player is about stats. It's about, look at what I'm doing. Magic and Bird didn't give a damn. Are you trying to tell me LeBron is averaging a triple-double? Do you really think Larry Bird went, hey, how many assists do I need for a triple-double? Come on.
You don't think this year, Dan, it crossed LeBron's mind to average triple-double? You don't think he's leading the league in assists as the game stopped? He's over 10 per game.
No, I think it's leading the league in assists. I think that was important for him. Absolutely. But are you trying to tell me LeBron couldn't average a triple-double every single year?
He hasn't. Like, what? Like, you don't think he hasn't tried? Like, you don't think that's been in his mind ever? Come on, let's get real. Like, of course, LeBron's the guy that's been chafing at not winning MVPs over the year. I've talked to Laker teammates. I wrote a story about this a month ago where I've asked them, like, does the MVP matter to LeBron? And to a man, they all say it did. So individual accomplishments and accolades, of course they matter to him.
Well, yeah, they do. Of course you want to win an MVP. I can understand that. At his age, yes, absolutely. I understand that. That's no big secret. I don't know why. Why am I yelling at you?
You're going to sit there, though, Dan, and call. Look, I agree. Russell Westbrook is ball dominant, but he did spend most of his career playing with Kevin Durant, and that's another ball dominant player. So, it's not like he had that 1 year or a couple of years where he had to do literally everything. But beyond that, he did have to share responsibility with top-level players, including this past one.
Just look at what Rick Barry did when he won the title. Look at it. Look at his scoring days that he had when he was in the ABA and the NBA. He was one of the great passers of all time.
So Russell Westbrook can't pass when he averages more than 10
He's a ball-dominant player. He's
I agree
one
with
of the
that,
top three of all time. Look at the numbers. Ball-dominant. You got to do stuff with it.
Where does Kobe rank on that list of ball dominant players? Where does Michael rank on that list of ball dominant players? How many years?
Not like Russell Westbrook.
I agree, not like Westbrook. But let's not pretend there's this Grand Canyon-sized gap between these players as ball dominance.
You would rather have Kobe over Russell Westbrook. You'd rather have Mike over Russell Westbrook. I mean, come on.
Yes.
I don't want this to be about Russell Westbrook.
We're talking Rick Barry, though.
But I'm just saying he won. He won.
Okay. So didn't Bill Wennington's got 3 championships. Great.
Really, that's your comeback? You're better than that.
I'm just saying I am, but you can't say Rick Barry's better than Russell Westbrook because he won, because you haven't put Russell Westbrook on the teams that Rick Barry had.
Rick Barry is a better player in my opinion. That's all. It's just my opinion. You see, I've seen the guys on the list. All right. I didn't see Mikan play, and I didn't see Bill Russell play. I've seen them all. And I can make an educated assessment of what I see with their games. Rick Barry was a spectacular player. I'll leave it at that. I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings with Russell Westbrook Jr. III, who is, going to win a title, I'm sure, with the Rockets this year. By the way, does the team that wins the title this year get an asterisk by their name?
Not if the playoff format stays the same. And that was a takeaway from the Friday call with the players, that the NBA wanted to have a best of 7 beginning with round 1. I understand it'll be in a neutral location. I understand it'll be different. But if you maintain the integrity of the playoff length, no, there's no asterisk. No more than there would be an asterisk in the 99, 2000 season or any of the work stoppage seasons.
Yeah. I think the season has the asterisk. The team shouldn't be saddled with an asterisk. It's a level playing field for everybody here, like it or not. And I agree. Hey, we agreed on something there. Now, the likelihood of basketball returning with what happened with the commissioner, with this phone call, was there an informal poll that was taken about coming back? So give us some details here on what's true and what's not.
Yeah, I mean, look, everything's true that you mentioned. There have been player representatives that have been informally polling players via text message to ask them if they wanted to continue with the season. Now, I talked to several players about this who basically said it's not as simple as yes or no. I mean, there's variables here. There's, what do you do with a positive test? What does the season look like? Where are we playing? Like, if you in a fundamental way, yes, everybody wants to finish the season. Like, for no other reason, they want to get paid. Like, and that's the biggest part of all this. But it was a strange poll to put out without having all the variables accounted for. I would say this: the other interesting piece of news that I don't think is getting enough attention is that the NBA in select cities is allowing for asymptomatic testing, and that to me is a significant moving of the goalposts on where the NBA initially, what they were telling me privately and other people privately, was where they thought they needed to be in order to start the season. Like, they thought initially it was like, we have to have testing that's just widely available, asymptomatic testing for whoever wants it. Basically, you can walk into a CVS and get tested symptomatic or not. We're clearly not there yet. But for the NBA to tell, I think it's Orlando and the two LA teams, I'm sure it's going to be many more in the days and weeks to come. But for them to say asymptomatic testing is okay right now in this current climate, that tells me that they're changing that criteria for what it needs to be when they come back.
I'm also wondering how far can they go into the calendar year here, Chris, with, how long do they stretch it out before it affects next season?
Oh, it's another good point because that's another probably the 1A takeaway I had in the last 4 or 5 days from these calls and information that's coming out. It's abundantly clear that the NBA and their owners don't give a damn about when they start next season. And if that's the case, you can keep kicking the can down the road. I mean, I know there was a report, and I haven't talked to anybody this morning about it yet, about 2 to 4 weeks they'll make a decision. That's the ultimate artificial deadline. I mean, if in 2 to 4 weeks they're not ready to make a decision, if they don't care when next season starts, and for obvious reasons, crowds, whatever, they really don't, they can say, well, we're going to push to mid-July, and even like August. Like I have some players that firmly believe that they'll go into mid to late October with the season if they have to get it done. So with that knowledge in hand, that's what makes me feel even stronger today than I did last week, that they'll find a way to finish the season.
I didn't even get to the Jordan documentary. And we wasted all this time on the greatness of Rick Barry. Yeah.
The greatness of Russell Westbrook.
You know what? I know you're not doing anything. You're quarantined, probably in Vermont. Why don't you do some research on Rick Barry, and then you come back with a book report and apologize, okay?
I apologize not being chronologically old enough to have seen Rick Barry play. Like, my bad.
You know what? Why don't you be older, Chris? Good to talk to you.
All right, Dan.
Thank you. That's Chris Mannix, Sports Illustrated senior writer.